There are many other reasons why you might justify CEO remuneration. You could look at the complexity of the economic environment in which their company operates. Platinum is a good example where the sector is under an enormous amount of pressure, and a CEO that's able to minimize losses or maintain profitability, even though the earnings to those shareholders might not be as high as some other companies, could still justify a fairly high salary on the basis that he limited the damage for those investors. There are other areas like technology sophistication, how difficult it is to implement technology or new capital in those sectors. Alternatively, the number of employees and complexity of the business in which that company operates. For example, Bidvest operate across multiple domains, where some of the miners operate in very niche domains that are much easier to manage. Last year, we ran a regression utilizing many components to explain CEO remuneration. All those components that I mentioned that make sense as to why a person might be remunerated in a certain way: number of employees, technological sophistication, size of the company, earnings as a driver, the sector as a whole. And the reality is, what we find is all those factors that make so much sense to why CEOs should be remunerated in a certain way, when you put them into a regression model, don't adequately explain why CEOs are remunerated in the way they are. And what that really talks to is two components. Firstly, CEO remuneration is incredibly poorly reported on. Options are almost never disclosed as part of CEO remuneration. And the other part of that is that it talks to the fact that if those factors aren't explaining CEO pay, other factors are explaining the remuneration differences. And I think a lot of what drives it is inflexibility in executive income. In other words, it's very easy to justify big performance incentives, massive growth in your salary when a company is doing well, when a sector's booming. What's much harder to do is convince the CEO that they no longer deserve that basic salary when the sector comes under pressure or the company stops performing. And that's why we'd like to see a much higher percentage of CEO remuneration linked to company performance in the form of things like options rather than cash incentives or basic remuneration. And obviously, there are requirements. You don't want CEOs trying to maneuver the share price to meet their own options. You should also have to pay for your options up front so that you've got real skin in the game. And you'd also want to limit things like company buybacks of shares, because we do see in the market CEOs get massive options, and I'm fairly certain that some of their companies are actually buying those shares back from them rather than those shares being purchased on the open markets. In summary, we'd like to see a lot more transparency. We'd like to see a link of that remuneration back to company performance, or at least back to factors that make sense in driving CEO pay. Not just how long a person's been doing it or how much experience they have, but the value that they deliver to the shareholders, the complexity of the industry that they manage, and the size of the company that they are responsible for.